I wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the job descriptions of people who work in recording studios. A lot of the jobs of people who work in the music industry in general sort of overlap with each other, and that's definitely the case with producers and engineers. But I'll tell you a little bit about what a producer and engineer might do. Producers are the people who are responsible for coordinating all aspects of the recording project. They typically work very closely with the artist that they are producing. They may help to choose the songs for the album or the project that they're working on. They're very often instrumentalists themselves and may contribute guitar parts or other instruments, keyboards on the recording. They are usually responsible for hiring session players. If the artist does not come in with all the musicians he or she needs, or if it's not a band, you need additional people to come in on the project, and the producer will help to determine who would be the best players for the session. Producer is responsible for keeping track of all the money that's being spent on a project, making sure that everybody gets paid. And very importantly, they are also a kind of liaison between the record label and the business side of things, the artist and the management, making sure that everybody's on the same page about the recording project and the way that it's going. Now, having said all of that, there are as many ways to produce a record as there are people who do it. Some of the greatest producers in rock music history and R&B history were not musicians at all. You think about people like Jerry Wexler. Other people who are wonderful, wonderful producers are brilliant musicians and have a very, very close hand in what goes on specifically with parts. And think about a person like Brian Wilson, who's singing, from the Beach Boys, who's singing parts to the various players in his orchestra. So there's really a lot of different ways to do it, depending on your personality. You definitely have to be a person who can manage the egos and emotions of musicians, because a recording studio is a very vulnerable place too, and you need to make sure that people feel comfortable and feel like they can try things and be creative. And it's a producer's job, really, to set the tone for all of the players. Producers are also sometimes engineers as well, although in larger, more big budget, I suppose, situations, the jobs of the producer and the engineer are separate. Sound engineers have their own set of skills that are quite specific. Engineers are in charge of the technical aspects of recording. They set up the microphones, they set up the gear, they run the recording software or the analog tape machine, depending on what kind of recording apparatus you're using. They know how to fix anything that breaks, and there's also sometimes even a second engineer on the session that's often a very, very good entry-level job, actually, for recording studios. If you've been to school to learn how to be a sound engineer, typically your first job will be as second engineer in a larger session where you're working on the patch bay, or you're moving gear in and out, or maybe even running out for lunch. It's a bit of a gopher job, but it's a wonderful way to get your foot in the door if you're interested in making records. Engineers also have the skills required to go on tour and do live sound mixing for artists. And so if you learn how to do sound audio engineering, and you want to see the world, you can decide to go on tour with a band too. And a lot of those skills are transferable between recording and live sound mixing.